Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called First Time You Realized America Really Messed You Up Part 2. So we're going to find out how messed up Americans are. So let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
When I was dancing in Australia, I did a jump and landed on the outside of my right foot. I sprained it real bad.
Awful.
And they drove me to a private hospital and I was like panicking. But anyway, that's the one that was available to me at the time. And on my way into the lobby, I was, hobbling on my crutches. And they spotted me from the parking lot. The doctor came out to me before I even was in the building and went back into the hospital and told them that I was coming. In the waiting room, they came into the waiting room to examine my foot. And I never paid a penny for that.
Crazy.
So I can make like 200 of these, but I'll just talk about the first time I realized how fucked up the US is, which was in the first week that I got to Sweden, when my boyfriend's family told me that I need to make sure I get insured, and that I get insurance for everything I own, my laptop, my bike, my apartment, my whole body. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's so expensive. Like, I'm already super in debt with student loans, so no. But I asked out of curiosity, just like how much it was going to cost. $100 a year to insure everything I have.
What?
For reference, like the average American person spends $456 a month.
Yeah.
Just on health insurance. Just for healthcare. That doesn't include cars or home insurance.
That's insane.
So.
Okay, so I'm not currently living abroad, but I did live in Australia for a few months. And one night while I was there, I got a little bit too crazy and I ended up on public transportation without a phone. And I had to find my way back to my apartment and I got lost. And while I got off the tram to get onto a different tram to take me home, a middle-aged gentleman came up to me and I immediately went into attack mode and I was like going to kill him. And he was like, no, I was just going to tell you which tram to take to get back to Preston. And that was when I realized that in Australia, I didn't need to be afraid. Like, granted, take precautions, but I didn't need to be afraid of every man.
I think it depends.
But in America, I still am.
Ooh, I've been waiting for this one. So at the time, I was living in Germany and I had gotten food poisoning after traveling back from a country.
Awful.
And I was so sick. I was not eating, not taking anything. And it had been 4 or 5 days. It was
Oh my God.
I was too afraid to go to the hospital, one, because I was afraid I couldn't translate, but two, I just didn't want to deal with everything.
You're
but
dying.
My friend said, no, we have to go. So I went. Tell me why we didn't have to wait on an emergency line. I was in the emergency room looking around. I was like, where do I sign in? Where's the line? Where are all the people? And they're like, no, you can go right in and go sit down. We'll be right with you. And I literally walked straight into the office, straight in.
Okay.
And I was struggling to explain what was going on. They brought in 5 different doctors of each different one. And it only took them 5 minutes to come each time when they realized they couldn't help me. It was somebody else they needed. And I didn't have to pay anything on top of that.
I'm an American living abroad in Thailand. We've been living here for a year now. So we literally moved here when the pandemic started. My husband had a business trip right before the country closed to Singapore. He came back from Singapore with a fever. So they transported him to a hospital.
Oh my God.
That hospital, however, didn't have the facilities for full-on quarantine, and so they transported him using an ambulance to another hospital where he was COVID tested and quarantined. Luckily, he tested negative, but he still spent 2 days in the hospital and was transported by ambulance. And so I was thinking the cost was going to be so expensive. The overall cost of it was less than $300, where back in the States, I know it would have been thousands.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to me that healthcare is affordable.
So I'm from LA and I moved to Singapore. And before coming here, I asked all my friends if I should bring anything a pepper spray just in case anything happens. And they were like, no, that's actually illegal. I don't think that they're allowed to have any kind of weapon. And I was like, what? We literally put them in our keychains as accessories. I was like, how do you defend yourself? They were like, from what? You don't have to. It's so safe.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, no way. So I Googled it, and no one is allowed to use greater force than necessary to defend themselves. What?
Oh,
The US can't ban guns, but Singapore can ban pepper sprays?
that's crazy.
So I didn't realize this until I moved abroad, but Americans have a very strange concept of freedom. Like, when you're growing up, you're always told that America is such an amazing place and, you know, it's the land of the free, home of the brave, but, like,
Is it
I
though?
keep hearing these criticisms from people like, oh, yeah, but America has the most freedom. Wow, yeah, freedom. I mean, there may be a few exceptions or nuances, but in the UK, you're still free. Like, that is the biggest lie that Americans are ever told, that there aren't other free places. Like, I don't understand. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I feel like the concept is kind of destroying American democracy. How ironic. Like, they need to kind of understand that they need to work on things to make themselves better and more free
That's
for their
true.
citizens.
So, just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me, I was working in the UK as a bartender. And my coworkers and I were talking about gun violence in the US, and they were kind of making jokes like, oh, I'm surprised you graduated and you didn't get shot first, and stuff like that.
Awful joke.
And I guess I was trying to defend it. So I was saying, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. I only know one school that had an active shooter and had to go into lockdown. And, for me, I only had one gun threat in high school, and it was just a threat, and one when I was in elementary school. And then my coworkers kind of looked at me like, you what? And you think that's normal? And I was like, yeah, it's not even that bad.
So I was in Grenada for a couple of weeks, and every single day between 12 and 2, they would always close down. Everything would just close down. And I was just like,
I hate that.
What is going on? And they're like, well, we need to go home and have lunch with our family, just enjoy, just relax a little bit. And that was when I realized every other country out here really understands the value of spending time with your loved ones and just actually taking a break, except America. America just teaches us to work for labor instead of actually living. So don't procrastinate on your happiness, sis. Your worth is not in labor. It's a luxury.
True.
Do what you want to do and be happy.
Oh,
You're
I've
a
got a
customer.
couple. So I'm from Los Angeles and now I live in Austria. And basically when I first started working here, they were like, you get 25 days vacation, Fridays off early, and if you're sick, don't come into work. And I was just like, I was floored. Because in the US, you only get 10 days vacation and like 5 sick days, and you don't get Fridays off early. You better work your ass until it's 9 p.m.
Correct.
On top of all of that, all my friends here have like 2 masters, 3 PhDs, etc., 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 because education here is actually free. Amazing. What an amazing concept.
It is.
In addition, I have yet to see a large homeless community out in the open here in Austria because the government actually offers some social support. A lot of social support. In LA, you have villages, streets, blocks full of homeless people.
Yeah.
Because our government doesn't care about us. And here, people don't measure their worth off the car they drive.
I was living in Italy and my friend needed an ambulance. We weren't going to get an ambulance because of the cost. And then we learned that in Italy, it's free for ambulances. We were literally like, wow, it doesn't have to be thousands of dollars for an ambulance.
Free?
That is crazy. A human life is in fact more valuable than profit here. It is so sad that we have accepted if you are in a vulnerable health situation, it will cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and many people go into medical debt because of this. Where are our priorities?
True. Yeah, I think up to the most I think cases were with healthcare, having to do with healthcare. And it's true. I think what that last girl, I think, mentioned something very important, which is how, we should prioritize human lives, right? That's probably the most important thing. As a social value, as a society, as a concept, I think the value of a human life should be worth, it's not worth, like, it's priceless, right? So it's kind of crazy that other places, specifically the United States, like, doesn't value, like, a human life enough, because it has a cost. And if you can't afford it, and if you don't have, obviously in a medical emergency, if you can't afford it, if you don't have the money, then it's like, well, I guess you'll die. And it's like, well, okay, but can we do something about this? It's like, no, you'll just die. And it's like, yeah, well, if a human life is like as it should be, right? It should be it should be like, if there's no cost, then it's priceless. Then, well, it would be like, well, who cares, right? It doesn't matter if you don't have the money. Like, we're gonna still offer medical attention because that's how it should be. And except, like, also, like, shouldn't doctors, like, take an Hippocratic oath? Like, you should help. But they're like, well, yeah, but it's not up to us. It's not like you're falling, like, you're having a heart attack in the middle of the street, and like, the doctor is coming along and they'll, like, help you because they swore an oath. I don't know, but it's kind of crazy that it's like, I haven't seen it. I hadn't actually, like, just sort of, like, I obviously I knew it, but it's like, yes, I don't think I've seen it sort of, like, reflected in that particular way. Like, yes, of course, like, you think, like, wow, it's super expensive, like, healthcare is expensive in the United States and other places, whether it's either free or it's cheaper, like, super cheap compared to the US. So it's like, yes, you sort of, like, you have the concept and it, but I hadn't seen it like that of, like, yes, it's actually, like, it should be about the cost of a human life. Like, how much is it worth it? And it's like, well, it costs an ambulance ride, because if you can't afford the ambulance, then you'll die, because people are like, yes, like they mentioned, like, I can't afford this. And in their case, well, it was good because obviously they're not in the United States, that people in America, if they're like, I'm having a medical emergency and maybe I'm scared about the cost of the ambulance or about going to the ER, then, and if it's a medical emergency, maybe you'll just die, because it's like, yes, well, too bad, they couldn't have either way, probably they couldn't have afforded it. So it's like, well, too sad, but that's the reality. And seeing it like that, it's obviously so, like, careless, but that's the case, actually. So it sounds awful and it sounds terrible, but that's really the way it is. I think one other thing that actually surprised me was the guy that lived in the UK, and apparently, like, the cops don't carry guns. That's weird to me, because it's like, okay, if you are a cop, then what are you, like, what's your job? What's your job if you're not carrying a gun? And it doesn't mean that obviously all cops are, like, shooting and using guns all over the place, all, like, during their shift. But I think they always have to carry guns. Obviously, in case you don't have to, like, grab a gun. Of course, we all know that a lot of cops are, like, trigger happy, but normally, I think cops, like, it's not that they're gonna shoot you, but they have to have the gun just in case that something goes out of hand. Or, I don't know, like, there's some sort of, like, emergency, like, someone's stealing. No, because when someone's stealing, you don't shoot at them. I don't know, like, I think it's weird to me that the concept of, like, cops don't carry guns. Because it's like, yes, you don't have to use them, but shouldn't they be carrying them just in case, like, something happens? But he was like, no, he seemed like, everyone, apparently, all the British were super, like, aghast at this, and they were like, no, like, why should they carry guns? But it's like, okay, it begs the question, then who carries guns in the UK? Like, if the actual, like, cops, do not carry them, then who's carrying the guns? Like, what sort of, like, authority figure of, I don't know, the military? But that seems excessive. Like, of course, like, the military, you're not seeing, like, military personnel just, like, walking around with, like, huge guns. So it is kind of weird to me of, like, so it's just the UK? Is it normal in other places? Now I want to know, am I the weird one that thinks that it's strange that cops do not carry guns with them, just in case they don't have to use them? But I think, like, what happens if there's, like, an armed robbery, or someone takes hostages? I don't know, like, you should carry a gun just in case, because otherwise, why, like, what does the cop actually do? Like, is it like a traffic cop? A traffic cop probably shouldn't be carrying a gun, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other types of cops that would use gun, that wouldn't use a gun, or like I don't know. Like, what's your job then? Like, what I don't know. Like, you should like withhold the law, but like, how are you doing that without guns? Do you just like send people to jail? I don't know. Like, that's such a weird concept to me. But I don't know if I'm the weird one, and maybe it's like normal in other places, and I'm like, no, I'm the weird one that to think of like. Cops should carry guns, maybe, but they shouldn't use them all the time, only in case of emergencies. I think the other sort of like weird thing that actually I sort of like half-heartedly agree. The woman I think it was Granada. She was like, oh, you know, the closest like shop, the shops like close between like 12 and 2, I believe, like a couple hours in a day. I'm thinking, okay, I understand your point, and it's like, yes, of course, they are workers, but they should also, like, they deserve to be, like, I don't know, have lunch with their families, or just, like, go, I don't know, like, go take a break, right? But, and I know as a concept, and if I'm like, I'm working in the shop, then I love this. I'm like, yes, you know, how comfortable I can go and, like, have lunch at my house. However, as a customer, I'm like, I hate this because if I'm going around by this concept of, you know, oh, everyone closes between like this particular set of hours, what happens if I'm like, my job also closes? And if I have to like run an errand, like I'm going to do that during my break, you know? So like, I can't go because no, those shops are closed as well. So I'm like, I kind of hate that. I'm the opposite, and I know she obviously mentioned it as a good thing because like, yes, you know, people have like a better work-life balance, which of course I support that 100%. Of course, yes, everyone should have a better work-life balance. No one should be like working to death 24 hours a day. But I think there's gotta be a balance. I kind of hate it. I hate that. Because again, it's like, well, not the fact that the people get breaks, because obviously it's good. However, I'm thinking of like, oh, as a customer, like if I'm, that's my break as well. So what happens? Like just like I can't run my errand, and I can't, like, it's just like sort of like wasted time. But maybe it's just like my concept and my mindset has to change. And I'm like, no, I'm being super wrong about this. And I know it's probably really entitled of me to say this because it's like, oh my God, you know, like, do not go out on your lunch break. Like, I need to run this. I need an errand. I need to shop for this. I need to like whatever. So maybe it's me being sort of like a Karen or being like super entitled, but I kind of don't like this. I kind of hate this actually. So I think there's gonna be a solution. I don't know the solution because it's like, yes, I actually want people to have their lunch breaks. That I want the shop open as well. So I don't know, maybe they should get someone that just works like for those 2 hours, like that shift of like 2-hour shifts. And I don't know, maybe that could work. But again, I like it as in like in the concept. I just do not love the execution because I'm thinking I want to shop as well. And obviously, I think the others that I think I'm like a little bit like, I don't really know. Like the pepper spray, that's crazy that in Singapore is illegal. Like you can't carry a pepper spray. But how do you defend yourself? And they're like, oh no, but there's no need. But it's like, well, there's bad people all over. Like I think the other person also like was like, oh, I was scared of like this stranger or this man. But it's like, well, technically, yes, a stranger danger. Like you shouldn't trust. Well, you should trust, but like, again, more, you know, with caution. Obviously, you're not gonna live your life super paranoid that everyone's trying to harm you or do something bad to you. But of course, you have to be like a little careful as well. Just like use common sense. But again, it's like just in case. I don't think like America gets a bad rep, but I think there's like bad people all over the world. So it is a little bit of like, okay, so what in Singapore? Like they don't have pepper spray because they don't need it. But it's like, but there's gotta be bad people over there as well. So how am I gonna defend myself? I don't know. Like I'd be a little scared. Maybe you should like learn, I don't know, defense. That you should like punch them or something. I don't know, just in case. Again, not telling like you should just like go around punching people. But again, just in case, you never know, because I think I'm of the concept and I have of the mind that it's not just in the United States, that it's just like, again, like there's bad people all over the world, like there's psychopaths everywhere. So it's like, I would be a little bit more comfortable just, you know, exercising a little bit of like who's this person? Does it give me bad vibes? Or it's just like a person that looks like super helpful and that's it? Like the woman that I think was in Australia that was like, oh my god, am I gonna have to kill this man? It's like, okay, calm down. It's not, let's not go to extremes. This person, if it looks like a friendly person and you're lost and he's just like, I'm trying to help you, then it's like, okay, well, yes. But I think, obviously, especially like if you're a woman, you have more of that like mindset of like, oh my god, like I shouldn't trust like weird, or well, not weird, just strange men in general. So I think maybe that's like, I don't know, it depends if you're a man or a woman. I think that your thoughts on this may vary. But I think, again, in general, there's like bad people all over the world. So I'm surprised by the fact that like pepper spray, it's illegal in other places. Because it's like, okay, I'm not telling you like carry a knife and like go like stabbing people, but what happens if you need to defend yourself? I don't know. We'd love to see a Singaporean to explain it to me. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.